Well, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our first weather band webinar on instruments. We're really pleased to have Brett Lane from Davis Instruments here kicking us off. Um, so if you do have any questions about our upcoming schedule, you can visit our website. I've just dropped the link in the chat there. Because we do have a high number of registrants today, I'm asking if you will please place any questions that you have in the Q&A section. I'll be helping Brett to field those at the end of his presentation. And so again, just in that Q&A box, if you could place your questions in there, that would be fantastic. So we're really thrilled, as I said, to have Brett Lane here. He is the Director of Technical Support at Davis Instruments. He has over 27 years of experience there, so he's really the absolute best person to walk us through all of the products and technical specs there. We're really excited to have him here to answer questions. And if you don't get your question answered today, don't worry, he will also be in the Weatherband online community to answer some more questions there. So if you are a Weatherband member, we are having an exclusive Q&A with him for the next 2 days. So thank you for all of this attention, Brett, and we're really excited to have you here. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Today, so we're going to go over the general weather offerings that Davis Instruments has to offer, and hopefully field some questions from you as we go through some of this product. Let me share my screen here. There we go. All right. Is everybody seeing that okay? All right.
Looks good.
Great. So who we are, Davis Instruments has been around for decades and decades and decades. We started out many moons ago with marine products. So if you're a sailboater or you have any kind of motorcraft, you might be familiar with Davis Instruments marine products. We then moved in probably about roughly 30 years ago into the weather market, weather station market, and have been producing weather stations since then. We've got a great name in the market. These systems are very rugged, very durable. Like you said, I've been with Davis for quite a while. In fact, this last weekend, I pulled a couple older test stations off my fence that have been running for, gosh, probably 15, 17 years, and they're still running great. A little cobwebby and dusty. That's why I was removing them for some newer stuff. But they last. They're good quality, accurate, last, and a leader in the field. And we also have a great customer support department between, we have 8 individuals between customer service and technical support, all based in our Hayward, California offices, and ready to take phone calls or emails if anybody has any sort of questions or need help setting it up, things like that. So we have those folks supporting the whole world there. So the key weather products, right? So Davis weather stations, what does that mean? At its core, there are outdoor sensors, right? So there's sensors you're going to mount outside. Then there's some form of telemetry, and then there's something either indoors or outdoors that receives that data and then does a number of things potentially with it. So we have outside sensors transmitting to a receiver that collates and stores the data. So the primary weather stations that Davis Instruments offers are called the Vantage View and the Vantage Pro 2. The picture here is of the Vantage View. It's more of the introductory model. It's a little bit cheaper, gets people into the weather monitoring world, whereas the Vantage Pro 2 has a lot more options. So it can be kind of expanded and used in a few different ways. So on the Vantage View, so the picture on the left there, we call that the sensor suite. So that's basically the outdoor sensors that are going to be transmitting data in. So on there, we have the wind cups on the top right for wind speed. On the bottom left, we have wind direction. On the bottom right, you'll see a little 5-plated radiation shield. That's got our temperature and humidity sensor in it. And then up on the top, there's an opening here for rain collection. So the rainfall will fall into there, empties out the bottom down here. So it's self-emptying, so nothing you need to do. And it'll collect and monitor how much rainfall you're getting. Inside of here, there's a transmitter. And this is the antenna. This on the top left here is the antenna for the transmitter, send the data back to something that'll receive it. Um, this system is powered by a solar panel. I'm going to go back one screen here. So here you can see the solar panel on the side of the vantage view, right? And maybe a little more better look at the rain collector opening there. Um, so the rain collector is a tipping bucket mechanism, tipping spoon mechanism. So as water falls in, it makes the spoon tip, and we record that switch closure, and then it pours goes and pours out the bottom. Um, all that is transmitted into this device here. This is what we call our console, our Vantage View console. So this has the antenna on the side that receives the data coming from the outside and stores it in its brain. So on the LCD there, this can be mounted on a desk, on a wall. It's got a backlight if it's dark. Um, so it will display all the current conditions. You can see a number of numbers there on the screen with a compass rose on the left, with wind speed in the middle, and then you've got your temperature, humidity, rain, barometric pressure, things like that, also displayed on there. I mentioned barometric pressure, but I didn't when we were talking about the sensor suite. The barometric pressure is inside the console and gets the pressure that way. Also on the console, you have the ability to plot and graph some of the data. You can see in the bottom left there a small graph. So you can look through and look at your rainfall amounts over time by hour. You can also plot the daily highs and lows. So down in that graph, you can plot either the last 24 hours of data, the last 24 days, last 24 months, last 24 years. There's 24 dots, so you can cycle through a number of different ranges. So oftentimes people look at that to monitor their highs and lows, safer temperature, or wind speed, and just kind of quickly see over the course of time what how things have changed. There are also other things on there. There's a forecast icon, showing sun, partly cloudy, rain, snow, things like that. There's you can pull up the sunrise sunset time. When you set up this product, it's really easy to set up. You basically mount the sensor suite on the pole, and then you power up the console. When you first power up the console, there's a couple setup items that you'll do, like entering in your latitude, longitude, and time zone, and things like that. So that's what helps provide us with the sunrise, sunset, knowing what time of year it is, and then the moon phase as well. Down in the bottom right, we have what we call the weather center. You can see on that image there, it says temp out, change 24-hour, -8.3. So there's a number of interesting things you can see down there by pressing the buttons on the keypad there and pull those up. So if I press the temperature button and then started cycling through the weather center, this is one of the items I would see. This is one of my favorite, where I can see the temperature change from 24 hours ago. So I'll often use that, say, when I get up in the morning and see that, like in this image here, it's 8 degrees cooler than it was yesterday. So I know today might be a little bit of a different story than yesterday, because there's quite a bit of difference in the last 24-hour temperature. Okay, so we talk about graphing. You can also set alarms on the console. They're basically threshold alarms. So if it gets above 75 degrees or below 32 degrees, whatever you want to set in there, when it exceeds that threshold, the console will begin beeping at you. And depending on what kind of data logging you've got set up, it could go to the Davis cloud and wind up sending you emails and texts and things like that the alarm condition has been met. If you're not home to hear the beeping, that's a better way to find out that alarm's been triggered. Okay, so radio. The radio is a 900 megahertz spread spectrum radio. So we've got 51 hops. So we're bouncing over different frequencies, 51 different frequencies. That's convenient in case there's some noise in the area of a refrigerator motor, a fluorescent light, a radio, something like that, that's putting out some interference. Since we're hopping around, we would hop out of that interference and not really be blocked by that. The transmission is going every 2.5 seconds. So every 2.5 seconds, this sensor suite is transmitting down to the console. So you can envision with all those hops on the radio, if there was a noisy channel or something, that's just 1 2-second packet that you'll miss, and then it'll pick it back up. So that helps it be a little more immune to noise. Also with spread spectrum radio, we're allowed a little bit higher power output. So that lets us go transmit a bit farther. On the Vantage Pro 2, very similar, but there are some differences. So we still have a sensor suite and we have a console. So on the sensor suite, there's some familiar players here, right? So we've got wind speed and direction up here. This is our rain collector. This is a radiation shield with a temperature humidity sensor in it. And in this box here is our transmitter. We have a really good power scheme on both these sensor suites for the View and the Vantage Pro 2. It's powered by the solar panel. And then for backup, there's a 3-volt CR123 battery. And then in between those two, there's a capacitor that we charge up. So if you're unfamiliar with that, think of it more like another battery, a rechargeable battery. The CR123 lithium battery is not rechargeable. That's just the backup. But this capacitor will power the system in the day with the solar panel, and we'll charge that capacitor up as well. And then when the sun sets, we'll run off that capacitor through the night. And if that capacitor ever drains, then we'll eventually lean on the backup battery. This is the same for both the Vantage Pro 2 and the Vantage View, same scheme. So we can charge that capacitor up in good 15 or 20 minutes with some good sunlight. And that gives you about 17 hours of power, right? So most of the time, especially out here in California, probably both winter and summer, but certainly in the summer, that capacitor will last through the night. We'll get enough sun, we'll charge it up fully, and it'll last through the night. And we never lean on the backup battery. In other parts of the country where you're maybe at a farther north latitude, or you get a lot of dark, stormy times in the winter, then maybe the supercapacitor will go out, at 2 or 3 a.m. or something, and we'll lean on that lithium battery for a couple hours into the night. If we had no sun at all, that lithium battery, the backup, would last about 9 months. So in the dark forever, it lasts quite a long time. So you can imagine in a scenario where you're getting sunlight in the day and charging the capacitor and using the capacitor at night, you often don't even use that battery. So the battery lasts 5, 7, 10 years. Eventually they'll run dry and you just order another one to replace it. They're available, of course, from Davis. They're available, but they're common everywhere at your local grocery store and whatnot. So on this, back to this sensor suite here, we have a couple extra sensors on here. They're a little hard to see, these two black devices here. One is a solar radiation sensor, one is a UV sensor. So the UV sensor will be commonly used at schools or ski resorts or outdoor recreation kind of areas, windsurfing, things like that. So that's an option. So part of the Vantage Pro 2 appeal is the options it has. So with the Vantage View that we already talked about, you get the sensor suite and the console, and that's about it as far as add-ons. Where it was with the Vantage Pro 2, there are different feature sets. There are things you can add to it and potentially different installation options. So primarily what you've probably already noticed on here is on the Vantage Pro 2, the anemometer is separated. It comes with a 40-foot cable. You can extend it up to a couple hundred feet. But that's so you can elevate the anemometer. So it's common to want to get the anemometer up a bit higher to get in some free and clear wind. We've all got obstructions and things down low that kind of give us some odd wind currents. So elevating it up to get some clean air is a good idea. It's also good to keep the rest of the sensor suite down a bit lower, right? So you want to keep it away from radiant heat so that the temperature humidity sensor is not in a hot area, right? So the south face of a stucco building might be a little warm in the summertime. So getting it on the north face or someplace that's doesn't have some elevated heat is nice. But also you want to clean out the rain collector periodically of leaves and debris and things like that so it can get working. So if rain is really important to you and you're in a rural environment, you're probably looking at cleaning it out twice a year. Other places maybe less so, but it definitely is worth a look and maintaining it just prior to the rainy season if you're interested in watching the rainfall there. So you can mount the anemometer separate. It breaks away like that. There's also a couple different flavors of this you can get. This one here has the 2 solar and UV sensors on it. That's an option. You don't have to get it with that. This also has a fan aspirated radiation shield. That's an option too. If you didn't get that, it would be called what we call a passive radiation shield, and it would not have a fan in it. It would just be airflow blowing through the side of it to bring the current air in, uh, which typically is okay. As long as you get some level of breeze and you're not in an environment where it's going from 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 120 degrees Fahrenheit in a couple hours, kind of a thing. As long as you don't have a steep temperature gradient and any level of breeze, you should be okay. But with the fan aspirated radiation shield that you see here, there is a fan in there that will be pulling the current air in at all times. So you'll always be assured that you have the latest air in there and you're not counting for it to just kind of blend in or blow in with the wind. And when you do get the fan aspirated unit, you get this extra solar panel on the front. So the fan in here will have 2 NiCad batteries that'll be recharged and by the solar panel, so we can keep the thing running at night as well. So that's why this normally in other pictures you won't see this extra solar panel on there. That's for the 24-hour shield. On the rain collector, you see this kind of narrow waist. It doesn't look like a big bucket. Well, we're calling that arrow cone. Oops. We're calling that an arrow cone. What it does is it helps with the wind flow, right? So rainfall can be dramatically impacted by wind. So basically what happens is when the wind hits the side of the big bucket and bounces off and kind of blows over it, it creates wind currents that you wind up having less rainfall falling in the opening at the top. So with this narrow waist, the wind tends to go around it and not bounce kind of up and over it and make currents that would keep the rainfall from falling into the rain collector. Now, we also have a screen in there that locks in. So it's a tall hat. It's kind of a cone or a hat shaped screen. So if there is any kind of debris in there and the water rises up a bit, it'll flow through the sides of this kind of elevated screen. So the water can always get through pretty easy. Also on the top here, you'll see these spikes. These are what we're calling bird spikes, but a lot of times birds will land on the side of the collector and they'll leave remnants in the collector that they'll eventually clog it. So if you have a lot of birds, it's recommended to put those spikes on there, and it just keeps them from wanting to land and sit on the side of the collector and eventually clog it up. The transmission range on this, as well as the view, is about 1,000 feet line of sight, so relatively far. Side anecdote, in tech support, we've got enough of these weather stations out there. I'm sure if you drive around your neighborhood or on the coasts or even farm fields, a lot of them are in the farm fields now, you'll see Davis weather stations. It's very, very common. So a common thing in technical support when you call is we'll have you switch your transmitter ID on the station. They all default to ID 1. And often you wind up picking up somebody else. So the transmission goes quite far. There's quite a number of these installed. So we'll often just as a matter of course, whether it's the reason you called or not, have folks change their transmission ID off of number 1 so that they can not accidentally pick up a neighbor or somebody within range. On that note, the ID channels, there's 8 ID channels. These are not different frequencies. They're just an identifying number on the data packet that transmits down. The reason we have that is you can potentially have extra transmitters, something besides this sensor suite. That's another option on the Vantage Pro 2 that the Vantage Pro 2 has over the Vantage View. So with the View, you're just doing the one sensor suite. With the Vantage Pro 2, you can fill up all those other channels, the other 7 channels, with other transmitters. It could be, we basically sell a generic transmitter box that you can plug in whichever sensors you like into it and have those flow into. So a lot of times you'll see maybe anemometers at different elevations in different locations, occasionally rain. Most often it's temperature. People will want to have some extra transmitter boxes and have a temperature probe in their pond or their jacuzzi, or on their roof or down in the backyard, or different environments to see the temperature. You'll be surprised, you'll see different temperatures all over the place within a few feet. If you put enough of them out there, you see that. Okay. So do we cover everything on here? Similar to the view console, there's the graphing portion in the bottom left, compass rose up there, moon phase, forecast icon, sunrise, sunset. The Vantage Pro 2 console there also has a text string of a forecast instead of just the icon. That'll scroll across the bottom. We call that kind of the ticker section. So that's where you can see additional information like the weather center on the view. Sometimes it'll display some fun messages like it's kite flying weather, hold on to your hat, it's raining cats and dogs, things like that when you have a significant weather event. So on both consoles, we have a way of displaying messages to you. Similarly, you can set up alarms, threshold alarms for all the variables, so that when that's exceeded, it'll beep at you, or let the Davis cloud know so that it can send you a text and emails. Our factories in the United States in Hayward, we're a one-stop shop there. We build them there, we support them there, we repair them there. They're all calibrated when they're built. There's, like I said, there's quite a few of these out there. It's not unlikely if you were just to buy a console and turn it on, you'd probably hear a Davis weather station somewhere. But I'm not recommending that. Get the whole sensor suite and the entire system. Then there's the data collection, right? So we talked about how all this transmits to a console, and you could be done there, right? We sell bundles where it's just the sensor suite and the console. And you could just put that on your desk on the wall and just watch that and be good with it. A lot of folks want to go the extra mile. So we have data loggers so we can store historical data, put that either in a website or software, and then you can plot and graph and kind of examine your data over time. So as far as data collection goes, we've got a couple images here. In the top right, that's our USB data logger. So that actually plugs into the back of the console, and that would go into a USB port on your PC. And it'll store the data. It's got a memory module in it, so it'll store records of weather data. We call that archive records. And there's archive intervals you can set. So if you wanted to sample every 1 minute or 5, 10, 30 minutes, an hour, up to 120 minutes, up to 2 hours. So anywhere from kind of 1 minute to 2 hours, you can make a record for review later or for helping in graphing these weather variables over time. So that USB logger, that will plug into a PC, and you can use PC software to download the records out. You can pull up what we call a bulletin, which is a real-time display of the current conditions. So you'll see wind speed dials moving around and things like that. And you can watch that. Had that around for a while. We're moving away from the kind of PC-centric software. Now we're doing a lot of data manipulation in the cloud. So most of our devices now are pushing things out to the Davis cloud to review there. Makes it a lot easier to rev software and give new features and things like that if we have this one kind of code base up on the web for everybody to see. So this device on the top left here, the black rectangle, that's called the WeatherLink Live. I think I've got screens. I should probably go to those. So the WeatherLink Live is another form of a data logger. It's actually a combination console and data logger. So what I mean by that is, as far as being a console, it listens to that sensor suite. It listens to that extra transmitter in your sauna, your extra wind speed up on the roof. So it listens to all that stuff, just like a console does, but it doesn't have a display. So you're basically going to funnel all this information into a website that you're going to view the data on, whether you're looking at current conditions or making line or bar graphs of historical data. So that's called the WeatherLink Live. It can hear all 8 of the channels. It can digest anything that's coming in on all 8 channels. You could actually have 8 sensor suites, right? So that full sensor suite with all those combination of collectors, there you could have 8 of those flowing into your WeatherLink Live and pushing them up, the data up to the Davis cloud. So it's really powerful. You can get a whole lot of information down into it, more than most folks need. I don't think I've heard of besides me goofing around and testing, I don't think I've heard of anybody having 8 sensor suites yet. So you guys can be the first and get on that. So it collects the data, it sends it up to our cloud over your network. It's a Wi-Fi enabled device. So the console portion of it, it'll receive the data logger portion of it, it stores it, and then it gets on your Wi-Fi access and pushes it up to the data cloud, and then you'll manipulate the data on your personal website on the Davis cloud on weatherlink.com. It's got a real easy setup. We get a lot of compliments on that. The setup is done with your phone via Bluetooth. So there isn't a complex setup at all. You power it on. We have an app called WeatherLink as well. With that app, you make a Bluetooth connection with it, tell it what your Wi-Fi password is, then it's online, and then you tell it what you're listening to. Maybe you have a sensor suite on 92, an extra transmitter station on 97, something like that. You tell it what you have, and then it just starts sending the data on up. So it's a really nice, easy setup for any skill level at all using the app and through Bluetooth. You can see the bullet point on here. We also have Alexa support, and we also have support for the Google device as well. So you basically say, Alexa, tell me what my current conditions are on WeatherLink, and it'll tell you, it'll report verbally what the weather conditions are. Okay, it does need to be AC powered. There's some battery backups in there should power go down, but we'll need to have AC power so we can drive the Wi-Fi on that. Okay. I think I covered everything there. The next device, this is actually kind of a separate device. It's not really a data collection device. It's a new sensor that we've just released that measures air quality. Very popular. We released it last year. If you're in California, we had lots of fires last year. There were a few days where the sky was virtually black. It looked like night. You could stare straight at the sun. It was actually pretty awful. But it was interesting to monitor the air quality as we went through that last summer. So air quality is a popular thing now. Davis has a wonderful sensor. You can mount it indoors or outdoors. It measures 3 different size particles. That's the PM numbers you see there on the second bullet point. PM1, PM2.5, PM10. So those are microns. That's the size of a particle. So PM2.5 is the one you'll hear about most. So those are particles that are anywhere from the 1 micron up to 2.5 microns in size. Those are the important sizes. The 2.5 is the area where the particle is small enough that if you inhale it in your lungs, it goes through your lungs and gets into your bloodstream. It's small enough to pass on through into the bloodstream. So people like to monitor that small of a particulate particle so we can understand for health reasons what we're breathing. Really easy to install, just like the WeatherLink Live. It's a Bluetooth setup, same app, the WeatherLink app. You'll get on that, make a Bluetooth connection, tell it what the Wi-Fi password is, and it's off and running. It's going to send it up to the cloud, and then you're kind of one-stop shop there for all your weather stations. You can go see all the data from it. Easily set up indoors or outdoors, real quick and easy. SID also, you can see the second bullet point here. It also calculates what's called an AQI, an air quality index. One of the more important ones is called a Nowcast air quality index. That's defined by the EPA. So that's basically taking in information on the particulate matter it's sensing and how it's sensing it over time to come up with a kind of an air quality number. And they're defined by the EPA of what's mildly dangerous, what's dangerous for people with breathing problems, what's dangerous for all of us, what's extreme, let's hide inside and keep the windows closed, that sort of thing. So we kind of abide by those thresholds, and when we display the data to you, we color code it, and we give you a little message letting you know the severity of it, so you can understand a bit better what that number is meaning. Also has a temperature probe in it, so you will get some temperature out there as well. You can have multiple of air quality sensors. I've got front yard, backyard, and inside. So constantly kind of monitoring. Front yard, backyard doesn't change too much, but there is some difference with inside. So it's interesting to monitor the inside. You'll see when you cook that it goes up and things like that. We certainly saw it elevate when we had the smoke last summer, right? Another quick side note, keep an eye on the time here. When we had the fires and it was really bad outside, you couldn't see, very dense, and smell the smoke. Monitoring the value outside was in the extreme, it was very dangerous. Inside was a lot down lower. I opened up all the windows, and very shortly the air quality inside went up and matched the outside and tracked it. When I would shut the windows, over the course of an hour or two, I could see the indoor air quality go down slightly. I think the particles maybe were settling out. And then I flicked on the AC intentionally. I wanted to see what the filter would do. And then you saw a dramatic separation from the outside air quality, much more than with no AC. So the AC filter tended to filter out those particles and improve the air inside, which was kind of what I wanted to see. So it's interesting to have them inside and out. Okay, and it'll all send up to the same account that you have online, so you can view them together. So data viewing, we've got a couple different ways. I mentioned the computer software, PC software, um, that you can plug the USB data logger into to view the data. That's the way we ran for a few decades. Now we're going up more to a cloud-based software and viewing on our website at weatherlink.com. That's where you go to log in and see your data there. So we also have a couple different apps. We have the WeatherLink app that I mentioned to you. That's how you can set up your system with the Bluetooth. We talked about that, but it's also where you can go view your weather data and anybody's weather data. Um, we have the option when you post your data up to the cloud to make it a public or private. If you keep it public, you can see on the image here on the tablet that it's plotted on a map. So you have the ability to go and find other weather stations around the country. I often look at this when I'm going to travel to see what it is in a particular area I'm going to. Um, and you can click on those devices, and as long as they let the device be public, you can look at their current conditions. Not their historical data, that'll always be private to you, but you can look at their current conditions there. So what I was getting at with that is with the WeatherLink app that we spoke about, besides just setting up your weather stations, you can view your weather station data and other people's weather station data. Okay. There's another app called Mobilize, and it will run some pre-canned reports. They're primarily valuable for agriculture. So degree days, evapotranspiration, IPM, integrated pest management, to assess when you're going to get disease or pests on your crop. But it also has a report for just current weather conditions as well. So it's another way of viewing kind of the weather data on the fly, but a little geared more towards pre-canned reports. Whereas the WeatherLink app, I think we'll have a picture on the next slide, lets you kind of just look at all your weather variables and not in some kind of predefined report that has a particular subject to it. Okay. So here is a picture of the weatherlink.com. So this is what it would look like when you log into your weather station online. The account is free. It's free to look at your current conditions. That's the first bullet point there. Basic accounts are free. So we call this the bulletin. This is the real-time current conditions. You've got the bar graphs on the left for some temperatures. You can see some wind speed direction in a polar plot there. We've got the forecast. We'll see a sunrise, sunset on there, wind speed, all your variables. I see the 142 watts per meter squared for the solar radiation sensor. So this is current conditions. This is something you can sit and watch during live events and see things change. One important thing to note is with the WeatherLink Live, the device that would get on the Wi-Fi, listen to all 8 channels, and push your data up here. If you're viewing this web page from the same network that the WeatherLink Live is on, right? So if I've got my WeatherLink Live here at home on my home network, and I'm looking at this web page from my home here, actually not on this web page, but in the WeatherLink app, I misspoke a bit. You can see live updates. It'll update every 2.5 seconds. Whereas when you look at the web page here, it's a 1-minute update. So relatively live, but if you're looking at, the 1 minute is relatively live, but if you're looking at a severe storm event and want to see things update a lot quicker, primarily the wind speed and rainfall, using the WeatherLink app on the same network, you can get some real fast live updates. Okay, so we mentioned the basic account. If you upgrade to the Pro subscription, what that allows you to do now is to get access to your historical data. So we talked about the archive interval earlier. I'll often use 5 minutes. 1 minute's a little overkill for me, but 5 minutes is nice. I get some nice graphs that move around a lot and aren't too faceted. Um, so it's 5 minutes is usually where I go. But if you upgrade to the Pro subscription, now you have access to all those records. So all my 5 minute records that I have, I can see those, I can summarize them in a report, and I can plot them. I can make line graphs and bar graphs and compare the rainfall with barometer and things like that. So that for me, that's the most fun is playing with the graphing and plotting things at the same time. Why do things change? I'll see some interesting things with, say, the solar radiation. It'll take a little dip, a little spike in the nice cosine response on a clear day, and I'm wondering what that little spike is, right? So I find out it's the tree branch or something like that. It was interesting. I could see it move over time because the sun's angle is changing with the seasons. So this little drop down event on the solar rad was moving around, and I wasn't sure what was going on. But with a little study, I figured out it was the tree branch getting in the way. So the plotting and graphing is really great. So within here, we mentioned that earlier, the consoles can do alarms. They can beep at you. But on the website here, same story, same threshold alarming scheme. But you can set up text alerts or email alerts. So you exceed that threshold, it's getting hot or cold or windy, or the rain rate is very heavy. You're worried about flash flooding, and the rain rate is really high. You can get a text or an email indicating that you've exceeded that threshold. Embeddable URLs, what we have here are I like to call them little widgets, but there's 5 different ones, different sizes, different amounts of data. But that's, and it automatically gives you a little HTML code snippet that you can pull out. But that's so you can put those on your own web page. So you can embed a little widget showing the current conditions on your own web page that people can go and visit and view. So there's ways to embed this data in other sites. We also have a very robust API, application programming interface. That's what that is that's for software developers. So this data that we're presenting to you here on your web page that is stored back in our cloud, you can have access to it programmatically. So you can write software that attaches to the Davis servers, gets your weather data, and then you can take it and crunch it and put it in another software package or run a report, or really, it's very open-ended. You can do whatever you want to once you have the data, and do something a little more customizable. You will have access to other people's data if they share your weather station with you. That's another big feature we have on here is sharing your weather data. So I could go in here, if you gave me your account name or your email, I could go in and set up my weather station is to be shared with you. And then you would be able to see it online here and have access to it through the API. So up in the top right, here's a drop down. So you'll click on that, pick any one of your weather stations or pick any one of the weather stations that people have shared with you. Okay. We talked about it being public or private. So if you really don't want it on the map or you don't want it discoverable by other people, like I said, they can only view your current conditions like you see here, not those archive records. That's your data. But you can set it to private if you want to keep it off the map and not discoverable. We also have the ability to upload to Weather Underground and the CWOP, Citizens Weather Observer Program. So there's a few places we can upload the data to, and then you can also view the data there. So the WeatherLink app, well, we've been talking about this somewhat initially for setup and then recently for the data viewing. What you'll see here on the top image, the elevated image, that's kind of the home page. So that's listing all your weather stations and a little snapshot of the conditions. So you can see there's the Hayward, official Davis Hayward station. It's 65 degrees and sunny. And then there are some other weather stations. We got a Helsinki airport in there. It's nighttime, it's 31 degrees, etc. If you tap on any one of those, and like I said earlier, these are stations that are yours or stations that people have shared with you or public stations that you go and find. Like I said earlier, when I travel, I'll go find a weather station where I'm going, and then I'll kind of watch it over time and see what the weather like's out there. Then if you tap on any one of those rows, then you get kind of what's hidden below it there. But then you get into the great details of your weather station. There's multiple pages showing you the temperature and humidity and the highs and the lows and the time of the high and low. There's line graphs showing you the data over time, either hourly or 7-day. Then either every weather sensor has a similar kind of page, and you just kind of keep on scrolling down and looking at your um, air quality data, or your wind speed data, things like that. And this is the app that I mentioned would go live and update every 2 seconds if you're on the same network as the weather station, or specifically the WeatherLink Live. That's a feature of the WeatherLink Live. There are other ways you could push data up to the Davis Cloud, but with the WeatherLink Live, if you've got this app on the same network, you get the 2 second updates. I did mention earlier another method of collecting data. It's not totally appropriate for the kind of the enthusiast at home. It's a little bit higher price point, but we also have an option of. Let me go back to the picture of it. Here in the bottom right, this is a console and a cellular modem. So this can go out remotely in the field. There's a large solar panel on the front of this door powering this 12 amp hour battery. It's a 6-volt battery, but 12 amp hours. And so in here, we're going to receive the sensor suite data and store it. And then we're going to push it out through the cellular network, and it'll go to the Davis Cloud, just like all the other devices are. So you'll go back to the website and view the data there. But it helps in a remote situation where you don't really have a building that has Wi-Fi or a computer with a USB port, things like that. It'll actually just sit remotely on its own out on a pole, out in the elements, and send the data on out to us. So that's also a possibility. What's not mentioned here also is another product line we have called EnviroMonitor. That's more geared towards agriculture. Has the ability to have multiple extra transmitters, so the people can put these all over on their fields and sample soil moisture, temperature, water pressure in their irrigation lines, all sorts of things. And similarly, that transmits it out back over cellular. There's an option for that for cellular or Wi-Fi, but we'll see in these fields most often it'll be cellular. They'll put it on a pole out in a remote area with no outbuildings with Wi-Fi or anything like that. Okay. So we were on the mobile app. So this is what you're going to look at, all your weather stations on the go, get all the information you need. And I think that's it. I usually talk way over, so this is surprising. I'm a couple minutes early here, but so this would be a good time for any questions if you guys have any.
Yeah, so we do have quite a few questions in the Q&A box. Thanks everybody for your active participation. It was really cool to see everybody jumping in to answer questions and ask them. So there's kind of a couple clusters of questions, so I'll just go through those if that sounds good. People were wondering what the forecast text or model is based on, so where the forecast is coming from.
Yeah, good question. In fact, I can see the questions too here. If you want me to just walk through them, I can do that
Sure.
too. Save a little bit of time going back and forth. Thank you for that though. So the forecast, that will primarily use barometric pressure. So dramatic changes in the barometric pressure will move the forecast. Secondarily, it'll look at wind direction. So depending on where you are in the country, when you get weather systems coming in, say from the coast or the east or the west, the wind direction will change in a specific way. So primarily barometric pressure and wind direction, but we do use elevation and temperature and things like that to kind of estimate if it's going to be snow and things like that. So pressure in there. The fee, there's no, so the AP, there is no charge for the API, but you do, it's kind of a scaled pay thing, just like with the basic and the pro tier online. So to access your archive records online, similar with the API. So at the basic level, you can query for current conditions. If you want to query for those archive records and get a batch of historical records for plotting and graphing, you just simply need to update your account to the pro tier, and then the API for you will automatically have those historic archive records in there. Lightning, sensors being hit by lightning on the roof. Yeah, that's a tough one. I do not see a lot of that. I have seen a couple that have been hit. A direct hit is rare. Occasionally you'll see things hit the oak tree in the backyard or in the neighbor's yard, and there's enough static in the air that it could impact electronics. But it's not all that common. We kind of shy away from how you can protect against lightning because every kind of county and municipality has different regulations. It's a good, kind of safety issue there. So we recommend going to kind of the local contractor and deciding whether it's appropriate to put up a lightning rod, or to do some other kind of mitigation to keep lightning from getting near you. Not too much of a problem, but if you're in a real lightning prone area, there's a potential. Um, and okay, so now there are more coming in. So out of order, let's scroll it down. Maybe I scroll down a bit. Yeah, I'm going to go a lot quicker. There's a lot of questions here. And if we run out of time, what we can do too is push maybe to the Thursday, Friday Q&A session where we can go through. But I'll see if I can get going through here. Why won't the humidity get to 100%? Yeah, common question into our tech support department. It's not always 100% at the ground when it's raining, right? You'll usually see it above 80% when it's raining. It's 100% at the cloud. That's why things are wanting to fall out. But it's not always 100% at the ground. Common misconception. I have seen it get up to 99 and 100 if I'm getting a rainstorm that lasts for a few days and everything's getting really saturated, and it's also colder. You can reach the kind of vapor pressure saturation level when the air temperature is colder. So an extended soaking storm in a cold environment, you would get a lot closer to that. But it's not uncommon when it rains to be 83% or something like that. The barometric pressure is never correct. Several hundredths. WeatherLink is usually dead. Yeah, we'd have to look at that. We've got a repair center that can fix problems with the barometric pressure sensor. It's important to set it properly to get your elevation in there. We're using an algorithm defined by NOAA, this air density algorithm, to give you super accurate barometric pressure readings. And that requires an elevation and then also a fine tuning. So the proper thing to do is to enter in your elevation first. That does a large offset on the pressure if you're not at sea level. And then you often call the nearby airport. And nearby is important. The elevation of the airport is not, but being nearby is, and then you can kind of fine tune the pressure. Some folks, we're finding that most of the world is not using that fancy reduction algorithm that we are. And so we kind of overswing sometimes on the pressure. The world hasn't caught up to the fancy formula. So the way around that is to remove your elevation entirely, set it to 0. And then in the fine tune adjustment of your pressure, you adjust it to exactly what the airport says. And that'll use a simpler algorithm, and oftentimes it can track. But if it's always off and wrong or broken, we like we said, we can repair things too. That's no problem. There's no reason it shouldn't be working right. There's probably some mystery in there we need to solve. Ice storms are fine. I've seen the cups freeze up when you get covered in ice. We do not have a heated anemometer, so you will get ice buildup on it, and then you won't see much wind. You want to knock that off. I don't see a lot of damage from ice. The rain collector doesn't get damaged by ice. If you get enough ice on your wind cups, it could knock them off, but that's not all that common. The wind cups survive 200-mile-an-hour winds, so some ice on there isn't going to necessarily break them all times. Can I use the WeatherLink device and use the? Yeah, you can use WeatherLink Live and the data logger. The data logger will plug into a console. Is everybody watching the question? Maybe I should read it out loud. Recently bought the WeatherLink Live, not installed yet. I need to print out monthly data sheets. Can I use the WeatherLink Live device and use the WeatherLink data logger? You could do that fine, right? So the data logger plugs into the console, then into a USB port on your PC. You can talk to the console all you want, get the data out, make your reports. And then likewise, the WeatherLink Live device, that'll be listening as well and pumping the data up to our cloud where you can do similar stuff up there. Another way of saying it is you could have 300 consoles in your house. These are just listening devices. They're just receivers. So you could have a bunch of lives, a bunch of consoles with data loggers. You could have them all over the place. So multiple receiving devices is fine. Doesn't confuse things. How does it handle snowfall and sub-zero temps without freezing up or breaking the rain measurements? Have not seen anything in the rain collector break from freezing events. You might not get rain if it fills up with snow, or if it's filling up with ice. It might not let water through to tip the bucket. Some people cover the bucket just to prevent snow buildup over time. We do have a heater that you can place in the cone, in the collector, to melt the snow. Of course, then you'll get water content of the snow, not snow depth. It'll tell you how much water is in it as if it were rain. But we do have a heater where you can melt that. But you shouldn't be worried about anything breaking in there. I can't recall an incident. Not that it's never happened, but I've been around for a while, and that doesn't happen too much. How do AirLink and Purple Air sensors compare? I don't have any data on our comparison with Purple Air, but I would expect it's comparable. Trying to think of ways to say Davis is better, but Purple Air is the big player out there. We're entering the game now, and we'll surpass them here in a year or two. But I think we're very similar, right? Both of us are not high-end $10,000 air quality sensors. So that's probably what's driving me to say that we're going to be very, very similar. Rain rate's calculated by measuring the tips between the time between the tips of the bucket. So inside that rain collector, water falls through, makes a little spoon tip, and it triggers a switch. So we count the time between two switches. Every switch closure or tip of the spoon is 1/100th of an inch. Or if you bought the metric version, it'd be 2/10 of a millimeter. So we measure the time in between that to calculate the rain rate. So you get basically a rain rate update every time that tips. All right, somebody in San Jose, maybe Costa Rica, maybe California. Vantage view for apartment, sure. It's a nice, easy setup. It's not as big. It's easy to kind of discreetly install somewhere. Is there a way to set up he asked, is there a way to set up a mask in the software to ignore the wind direction obstructed by the building? You can't, yes and no, right? So you're always going to receive wind direction. If it's not all that accurate because the building's in the way, then you're just not going to pay attention to it too much. However, on the website, you do have the ability to mask items. So whether it's the live current conditions, you can say, don't display that wind direction widget. In fact, you can move all those things around on the display and organize them, whatever is convenient for you, and it'll save them that way. And you can also say, hey, let's take the wind direction widget off. I don't need to look at that, and take it off there. Same thing in the archive records, in the data section where you're going to plot and graph things. You can decide, let's not show that wind direction column. It's useless to me. I'm tired of looking at it. You've got so many sensors and so many high-low variables that you've got a lot of columns. So a lot of people will pare that down into the things they're primarily interested in. What's the recommended placement for weather stations to get the most accurate data? That can vary by whether you're agricultural or home. The National Weather Service, I think, likes to have things wind speed up on a 30-foot pole. That's not always tenable for everybody. Oftentimes I'll tell folks, where do you want to measure the wind speed? Do you want to know what it is, 1,000 feet up in the air, or do you want to know what it is hitting your house? So the typical homeowner will put it often on the roof and elevate it above the peak of the roof about 6 feet or more to get some free and clear wind. Often the wind kind of swirls around when it hits the roof. So getting it up off that. But nobody has the ideal situation. It's very tough to follow the National Weather Service guidelines. Agriculture, oftentimes you want things 6 feet off the ground, right? So you will have temperature and humidity 6 feet off of green vegetation, not dirt. So depending on where you are, there's different mounting methods. But just think about what you want to measure. You want to access the rain collector to clean it out. You don't want anything to block the rain. The rain can come at angles. So don't have anything too close to block the rain that's blowing in at an angle. Don't put the temperature humidity sensor next to things that get hot. The air there will be a little bit hotter. So it kind of varies, right? So it depends on the application. How are we doing on time? We got 7 more minutes. Issue download. Sometimes I have an issue downloading my data from WeatherLink into the software. I get a message that says retries. Yeah, you should call the tech support and talk with them about that. What will happen is if you get an error, a packet error, they call it a CRC error when you're transmitting the data, it'll say, oops, give me that packet again. I didn't quite get it right. And if it builds up 20 retries, it says, I'm going to stop. This communication channel isn't good. So our tech support team is awesome. They'll have some suggestions for you to try to mitigate that. At a minimum, if you download sooner, so you're downloading less records, you might not build up the 20 errors, but it's a little more ideal to rectify the error and not get those at all. So that's the good tech support call. Is there a video available on how the tipping spoon versus the tipping bucket works? Is the tipping spoon upgrade just for the view? No, the Vantage View has always had the tipping spoon. The Vantage Pro 2 just went from the tipping bucket to the tipping spoon. So everything is tipping spoon now. Your view was always that way. If you have an older Vantage Pro 2, you can buy the new spoon mechanism and clip it inside your rain collector and upgrade it to the spoon. The spoon's a little more reliable in terms of accuracy and drift over time. It works better at higher rain rates by the way it tips. It's easier to build and calibrate for us. So we learned that with the View and we migrated that over to the Pro 2. Is there a video available? Specifically on how the two work, I'm not sure, but Davis does have a YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and look for the Davis Instruments channel, it is chock full with a bazillion videos. So you'll find anywhere from how to use software and apps, how to install the system, or just general sales and marketing kind of feature set kind of videos. So there's lots of videos in there that you can peruse and learn stuff. Why don't you use WWV for clock updates? I assume this is the over the airways atomic clock kind of a thing. We've always entertained that idea of getting the atomic clock data, but we also now everything is all integrated with the internet, so we'll use the internet to set the time on things, and we've moved away from having the human having to manually set it. It kind of gets set over the internet. Evapotranspiration, how do you, I need to read the question. How do you calculate evapotranspiration, presumably without surface coverage information? So for those who don't know, evapotranspiration is primarily used in agriculture, and it's kind of the opposite of rainfall. It's how much water you lose from the plant transpiring and from water evaporating. So hence the term evapotranspiration. It's a beast of a formula. We're using kind of the standard, the modified Penman-Monti formula. That's just as common out there in the world. And it uses all kinds of weather variables from temperature, wind speed, solar radiation, humidity, and barometric pressure. So obviously, if it's hotter, you're going to lose more water. If it's windier, you'll lose more water. If it's a lower pressure, water will leak out. If it's sunnier, that kind of thing. So all those go in to give you an assessment of your water loss. And then agriculture will use that to estimate how much water they need to re-add to the crop or the soil. It is an estimate, so it's not actually measuring soil moisture. It's using those variables to estimate how much you'll lose. And its standard is over short, well-watered grass, complete ground cover. So what that means is don't put it over hot dirt, right? So you've got it over short grass. Well-watered, meaning it's got the max amount of water to lose, right? If the ground was dry, you're not going to have any water leaving it. But we could calculate that you could. So a well-watered ground cover below it is kind of the default standard. When you move into some of our more agricultural centered reports and things in the Mobilize app, you can set what we call a K factor for the evapotranspiration. So these are things you can look up with your agricultural extension service and find out that the K factor for this species of young corn is this. And you can apply that to the evapotranspiration and modify it, right? So it's a number like 1.1. So we'll increase the evapotranspiration by 10%. And that's kind of crop dependent. So if you have it in a certain crop, you can apply K factors, but you've got to kind of move up to our more agricultural defined products to be able to do something like that. Okay. My background, it's more engineering. I went to college for industrial technology, computer and engineering. But with Davis, you learn a lot about meteorology. So that's that there. And that looks like the end of them. Oh, updates coming for WeatherLink computer software. It's a bit dated now. Nothing on the horizon for the computer software. We're moving everything off into the cloud now. We think that's the right way to go. It's common in the industry. It gives us the ability for updating one software package and not for Mac and Linux and Unix and all these things like that. It's an easy way to add future features on there without having to support OSs and drivers and things like that. It also gives you the ability to look at stuff on the fly, right? So I'm not at home now with my weather station plugged into my PC looking at data. I'm at work looking at the web page showing you my home data. So that's the bigger advantage too, is you can, from anywhere, you got an internet connection and a browser, you can access your weather data. So no plans on the horizon for the PC software. A lot of focus on modifying our apps and on our website to support that interface. All right, and that is 10:59.
Amazing. That's perfect timing. Thank you so much for all that knowledge and for answering all those fantastic questions. And thank you to all our attendees. And we look forward to continuing the conversation in the Weather Band online community. So if you do have any other questions, come over to amsweatherband.org and click on the community link. We'll have a thread open for discussion, and we'll also look forward to seeing you in there. So thank you again, Brett, and the whole Davis team so very much. We're really excited that you kicked off this instrument series for us, and really, really appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. It's nice talking with you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye bye.